As many as 300 people may have been in the wing of a theater in the besieged city of Mariupol, according to Ukrainian authorities. Key points. Ukrainian officials previously said about 130 people were rescued from the rubble of the theater. The UK says a Ukrainian counteroffensive has allowed them to reoccupy towns and defensive positions up to 35 kilometers east of Kyiv. The mayor of the Kyiv suburb Boryspil says 20,000 civilians left the area so Ukrainian troops could push the Russians further back. Local officials citing witness accounts said up to 300 people are feared after a drama theater where hundreds of people had been sheltering was struck by a powerful Russian airstrike on March 16. From witnesses comes information that about 300 people in the Mariupol drama theater, as a result of the aim by a Russian plane, Mariupol City Council said in a statement on Friday. Up until the very last moment, one does not want to believe this horror. But the words of those who were inside the building at the time of this terrorist act says the opposite. Russia denied it was responsible for destroying the theater, which was being used as a shelter. Ukrainian officials previously said about 130 people were rescued from the rubble and that the theater basement, where many people were reportedly sheltering at the time of the bombardment, had withstood the attack. The Ukrainian government said it was impossible to get an exact toll because Mariupol was under almost constant bombardment from Russian forces. Russia has denied the theater. A refugee waits in a car as a pro-Russian tank drives out of a checkpoint in Mariupol. Attempts to arrange passage out of Mariupol. Meanwhile, Ukrainian authorities are hoping some civilians who have been trapped in Mariupol will be able to leave in private cars on Friday. Repeated attempts to arrange safe passage out of the southern port city, which is surrounded by Russian forces, have failed. Civilians trapped there have been sheltering in basements with little food, power, or running water. Those who manage to leave Mariupol will find buses awaiting in the nearby city of Besieged, which will take them to the city of Zaporizhia, Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchuk said. We will do everything in our power so that buses filled with Mariupol residents reach Zaporizhia today. Mariupol residents face long queues to receive much-needed humanitarian aid. Efforts to evacuate as many residents as possible came as the toll continued to rise, with reports of mass graves being dug to bury victims. The head of the UN Human Rights Team in Ukraine said monitors had received increasing information about mass graves, including one that appeared to hold 200 bodies. We have got increasing information on mass graves that are there, Matilda Bogner told journalists by video link from Ukraine, saying some of the evidence came from satellite images. Ms. Bogner said civilian S in Ukraine exceeded 1,035, adding that the UN team was probing what appeared to be indiscriminate attacks by both sides in the conflict. Kyiv has been a major target of shelling and airstrikes by Russian forces in their attempt to capture the city. Ukrainian troops take back eastern towns. Ukrainian troops are recapturing towns east of the capital Kyiv, and Russian forces, who had been trying to seize the city, are falling back on their overextended supply lines, according to British intelligence. Battle lines around Kyiv have been all but frozen for weeks, with Russian columns threatening Kyiv from the northwest and the east. But in an intelligence update on Friday, Britain described a Ukrainian counteroffensive that had pushed the Russians far back. Ukrainian counterattacks, and Russian forces falling back on overextended supply lines, has allowed Ukraine to reoccupy towns and defensive positions up to 35 kilometers east of Kyiv, the update said. Locals say Mykolaiv has been the victim of seemingly random rocket attacks. It said Ukrainian forces were also likely to try to push the Russians back on the other main axis threatening Kyiv from the northwest, while in the south, Russia could still be planning to attack the port of Odessa after abandoning efforts to take Mykolaiv. Meanwhile, Volodymyr Borisenko, mayor of Boryspil, an eastern suburb where Kyiv's main airport is located, said 20,000 civilians had left the area, answering a call to clear out so Ukrainian troops could push the Russians further back. Loading.